Business athletes, what is going on? We are coming back at you for another episode. And it's been a little bit of a gap between my previous episodes and this one because I've been very busy in the creation station. Family got a flu the other week, so we've had a bit of downtime, but I'm back, ready to rock and roll. A number of you guys had messaged me asking about the podcast, so thank you for holding me accountable. And today, we have a really good episode. This is a theme that I've been talking about and focusing on so much lately that I feel like it's got me through a lot of really challenging seasons in my life. You know, it's one thing to have the tools, but it's another thing to really understand how do you navigate those bear markets of your life, those times where you're just getting kicked. So today, the science and strategy of becoming magnetic. The science and strategy of becoming magnetic. Manifestation for high performance, energy, action, and alignment. So before you tune out and you go, oh, he's going to talk about a bunch of woo-woo stuff, pump the brakes and recognize that I'm going to give you lots of tangible, tactical items in this discussion that gear you around optimizing your energy levels. When I say energy, it's almost like interchangeable. Think of energy a bit like, on one hand, it's the energy you have. So like if you need more caffeine or if you're feeling really tired, that's a lack of energy. But energy is also that magnetism or that repulsion that someone has. Think about when you meet someone and you walk into a room with that person. Think about a time where you've connected with someone and they were very magnetic. I can think of this. I was at a fitness expo a number of years ago, and I was with one of the teams at the expo, and a guy came up to me, and he started talking to me about bodybuilding and health and everything, and he was very magnetic. He had this like look on his face. He was very interested in my story. And when I was talking to him, he was very attentive and his energy was very calm but present. And I remember that conversation to this day because I was like, when we finished that discussion, I left feeling charged up. I left feeling really good about myself. And I was like, man, whatever that guy just did, that's an art form right there. And I genuinely believe that's something that you can orchestrate and engineer on a daily basis. But you've got to be intentional. And the reason why it's such a valuable skill is because I remember it to this day. Years on, I would say more than 10 years later, I remember that conversation. And think about how many conversations you have. So I say this because when you are the master of your own nervous system and the master of your own energetic state, everything gets easier for you. And people will say you're lucky. And it's absolute BS. You know that you understand how frequency and energy works. Another example recently that I saw, the tech mogul Brian Johnson, who runs the supplement and health company called Blueprint. And Brian Johnson is touted to be the world's most biohacked, studied man, basically. So he spends millions and millions of dollars each year biohacking and testing and studying himself. And so $4 million a year on everything he does. And he's very, very systems-oriented, very regimented. He's got protocols for everything. And what's interesting is that even with a guy spending $4 million a year on biohacking and health, with all his protocols, with all his testing, taking over 100 supplements a day, he still developed a digestive autoimmune disease. Isn't that amazing? That someone could be that obsessed and that dialed in with all their processes and spend all that money and still have a health complication arise. Why? Because he doesn't understand the concept of nervous system and energy well enough yet. He's just thinking of your body as a closed-loop computer system, like an algorithm. Calories in versus calories out. Protein, carbs, and fats in. Muscle building and fat loss out. And I'm here to tell you that that is a very primitive, one-dimensional way of thinking of transformation. And you can get away with that in some capacity when you're younger. But once you get to your 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond, if you just focus on macros and calories and you just focus on the inputs like you're a computer and an algorithm, but you're not understanding mental stress and how trauma builds up in your system and understanding how your nervous system functions, if you don't master these things, it will come back in the form of health complications. One of the things I see often is I see people that are professionals or business owners that have a lot on their plate, they have a lot of pressure, they have a lot of ambition and goals, and they often have digestive issues. Why? It's not always to do with the food. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it might be a food sensitivity, sure. But a lot of the time, it's unmanaged stress on your nervous system, unmanaged trauma in your subconscious. And what it's doing is your nervous system is in this fight-flight response. And think about it from that perspective. So your autonomic nervous system has two sides to it. It's got your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic is like your rest and digest state. That's a state that kicks in when you're calm, when you are breathing nice and slow, when you're sleeping, when you're relaxing, when you know how to rest properly. Rest and digest. On the other end of that seesaw, you have your sympathetic, which is your fight or flight. So all the blood volume leaves your digestion, it leaves your organs, and it goes to your lungs, heart, and your extremities. Why? Because it's getting you prepared to fight or flee. And most people are so wound up and they're so highly strung that, and often you won't even really know it. I will say I know a number of people that I feel are very, very wound up and very high strung, and I would guess that if I asked them how wound up they would probably say that they're kind of stressed, but it's not too bad, or maybe they are stressed, but it's been worse. And they're so used to being so wound up, they have no idea how stressed they actually are. And I can see it because they get digestive issues often. And so what I'm going to be talking to you about in this episode is how do we master that stuff? How do we unwind the pressure and stress on your nervous system so you can sleep better, so your digestion improves, so you don't feel so fried all the time, and your capacity for stress improves, it increases. But you got to think, energy, it's a multitude of things. And so this is kind of the opening frame. Energy is, how you walk into a room. It's how you sell. It's how you lead. It's how you parent or grandparent. It's how you speak to your spouse. It's how consistent you are. It's what opportunities you notice and actually move on. It's how resilient you are under pressure. What standards you hold. And what people feel when they are around you. So I say this because when you can understand that your diet, your lifestyle, your training, everything I'm going to be talking about in this show ties back into harnessing the power of your nervous system to actually increase and improve your energetic capacity, it's an absolute game changer. And it's a daily practice, by the way. It's not something you just achieve and then you're done and you get to sit back on your laurels and just rest. It's literally a daily practice. And once you start to truly embrace that, that's when significant change will start to happen. The thing to understand is that your state shapes your outcomes. I mean, think about it from a logical perspective. When your nervous system is dysregulated, exhausted, inflamed, anxious, reactive, or depleted, you don't see the same opportunities. You're so busy like fighting through the molasses, the mental molasses. You're so busy fighting the demons. You're so busy in the trenches of your mind, struggling. You don't see the opportunities all around you presenting themselves to you. They're there. You just have so much fog of war going on, you can't see them. And so it's almost like a self-fueling system. The more someone is in that low energy, low frequency state, the less opportunities and the less, what would you say, positive outcomes appear. Because you're so busy just dealing with the day-to-day suffering and grind. You're not looking in the right places. And so it has an absolute effect on, you will procrastinate way more. And this is also a self-fueling system. So the more someone is struggling with their energy, if the energy is low and they're feeling fried, you will be procrastinating more. You will be pumping the brakes on getting that mentorship or getting that coaching or getting that course or doing that thing. You'll be pumping the brakes way more. You'll avoid hard conversations way more. So there might be people in your business that are pushing boundaries with you, and rather than you calmly asserting the boundaries to keep yourself locked in, you're avoiding the hard conversation. So you're letting all these things slide, and that's further draining the heck out of your energetic fuel tank. You'll react instead of lead. So if someone does something to piss you off, you will be way more reactive. And this is especially true for your children and your spouse. You might be able to hold yourself together and save face with your clients in a professional setting. But then when the mask is off and the full lethargy kicks in, you're that stressed out, reactive, cranky version of yourself around your kids and spouse. And I know this is true for everyone in some capacity, because I've had to navigate these things in my own life. That's why I put such an emphasis on these concepts, because I wanted to know that I could push through my life, achieve these amazing goals, create this amazing reality for myself, but still finish the day and have some emotional and mental bandwidth to connect with my family, so they didn't feel like they were just getting the fried leftovers. Don't give them the fried leftovers. You are capable of more. People in this state, they'll typically choose comfort over growth. So often that's kind of ties into procrastination. You'll just choose to mild, low-grade struggle because the idea of pushing yourself feels exhausting. So you don't have enough capacity. You'll communicate poorly. Often I find when people are mentally fried, they just don't communicate well. There's lots of blind spots and blank space in conversations. I've seen this with some of my students over the years. When they're not good at communicating, I can tell it's because they're mentally, that energy is tanking. And then they won't communicate where they're at. And you're left to just kind of fill in the blanks. And then all that does is drive more crappy results. You'll lose creativity. I've seen this with a number of the musicians that I work with. I'm working with Chris Daltrey for a number of years now. We really, really focus and work on that energy mastery because it does have a real world effect on his creativity when he's writing music. And as an entrepreneur, as a professional, you are a creator in some way, shape, or form. And your creativity is often such an important part of your self-expression. And if that is crushed, you lose that ability to express oneself. And that's massive. That's a big deal to me. You'll misread people. So you'll look at a situation and you just don't have the fuel to problem solve it very easily. You'll get upset about stuff that really isn't a big deal. Think about when you are in a place where everything is you're kicking butt, you're making tons of money, you're feeling good, your energy's great, you've got a spring in your step, you're just feeling awesome. And then think if someone comes into your life and they do something kind of challenging, you really probably don't care that much. You're like, yeah, whatever. I know this to be true in sales, for example. In my past, when I've been growing, and in the months where I was doing really, really well, if someone came to me and wanted to get coaching and they sort of fart around a little bit and they're indecisive and then they choose to not get help, that used to bother me way more. It used to get under my skin, and I used to get down on myself thinking that, okay, I'm just not good enough. Now, I'm just like, whatever. If the person doesn't want help, they can choose to stay the same for the time being until the pain gets intolerable. It's okay. And you just don't care. Like you're detached from the outcome. And there's a beautiful freedom that comes from detaching from outcomes. Like if you have a day or a week that's challenging in your business, but you learn how to detach from that number in the bank, and you learn how to anchor to the principles and the character of the man or woman you're building, that's freedom. That's how you actually create the beautiful life. So you're not hinged, you're not contingent on numbers in a bank account all day long, because you are more than that, but you've got to recognize that first and actually believe it. You will sabotage momentum. When you're feeling jaded and fried, typically what you'll do is your inhibitions will drop. So you'll binge eat more. You'll use substances more. You'll cut corners, and you'll just do lazy stuff more. And you know this is true, because think of the times where you've been feeling kind of fried. You will typically lean into doing clown stuff more. You know it, I know it. Even if people don't like talk about it publicly, it's a thing. And subsequently, you'll shrink your standards. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, when you are geared around high energy, clear, grounded, confident, and you're regulated, nervous system, you take action way faster. The people that I see that are in momentum, man, they move quick. They just make decisions quick. They back their ability to figure things out. They communicate better and clearly and confidently. They sell way better because they're in that good energetic state. People feel that energy. They feel when you're in a good state, and that's magnetic. People want that in their life. They want that. They want the best version of you in their life. They don't want a mopey, heavy energy vampire, negative Nancy in their life. Life is challenging enough as it is. Don't be a giant energy vampire, because otherwise people are just going to repel you. You're not, and that's going to affect your sales and everything. Equally, work on being that magnetic version. You'll lead better. You'll sell better. You'll connect better with people. They'll want to help you more because they enjoy being around you. You'll connect with your family way more. Think about when you have a beautiful connection with your spouse and kids. It's like rocket fuel for a professional or entrepreneur. You know this is true. You know that when you've had conflict or challenges with your partner, it tanks everything in your life. Your work sucks. You show up like trash. Your workouts are garbage because your energy is so low. Equally, when you nurture that connection and you pour into that, and you connect better because you're showing up and leading better, it's like rocket fuel. Your capacity to handle stress will tenfold, which obviously in turn, because you have more capacity, you'll solve problems faster and you'll be able to solve more problems. You'll hold yourself to a higher standard. Like when you train, you know you'll actually put in a good effort with your training. It's not just going to be this sort of hit and miss. I'm just checking it off the list all the time. You'll actually put in that solid, focused effort. And that's the difference between being an A student and a C student. I say this all the time. A C student still passes. They still check the boxes, but they kind of suck. They're the ones that just check the boxes, and they're like, well, I'm doing everything. And it's like, you got to be honest with yourself. You're doing everything, but you're doing it at a C capacity, and that's why you look like a C grade student. In this life, we have a choice. You can be a C grade student if you want, like so many other people, or you can say, you know what? There will be times where I get a C, but I'm going to strive and aspire towards being a freaking A+ student, and I'm going to truly put in the work, and that comes back to that energetic capacity. So you got to remember, energy is not just vibes. It's not just woo-woo. It's physiology. It ties into the following stuff. Think about all of these things I'm about to rattle off to you. It ties into sleep, blood sugar management, hormone systems, sex hormones, thyroid function. It ties into inflammation, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and homocysteine. It ties into gut health, your microbiome. Obviously, tying into your microbiome, your liver function and your bile flow affects fat breakdown and absorption. So that ties into organ health. Your hydration, because hydration acts like a sort of a communication matrix for all the nerve signals and ATP and mitochondrial function. When you dehydrate, you lose the ability to sort of transfer messages across the human grid fast enough. Minerals, because when you sweat, when you perform, your body uses minerals as a substrate. Sunlight, like human photosynthesis, your body literally takes sun and uses it to create different hormones in the body. Melatonin is a good example. Breathing. Breathing is one of the systems in your body that is either voluntary or involuntary. It's both. So you will naturally breathe without even thinking about it. Very often when you do that, you're probably like shallow mouth breathing, which is not ideal. But then when you take control of that system and you consciously nasal breathe, big, deep, intentional nasal breathing, that helps throttle down the system. So your breathing will either throttle up your nervous system or down. Slow, deep, controlled inhales through the nose, exhales out the mouth, helps calm down your nervous system and kick on that parasympathetic response. Equally, hyperventilating or breathing through your mouth, like you'll see a lot of powerlifters do this right before they lift. They hyperventilate through their mouth. That revs up your nervous system. You'll see this when someone's about to fight. They're very, very heavy breathing through their mouth, revving up their sympathetic nervous system to max capacity. So breathing has a massive impact on your nervous system regulation. Your posture. They've actually studied this in research, by the way, around posture and how it affects literally sex hormone production. If someone has a very slouchy, disempowered, weak posture, it has a real-world effect on your chemistry. Equally, when you have a very confident posture and you have a confident stride when you walk and your chest is up and your head is up and your shoulders are back, that also has a positive effect. Even smiling. So between smiling and posture, that you can literally rig the chemical nature of your body. It's profound. And even our relationships, purpose, self-talk, all of these things, they all tie into this stuff. So when you are not locked in with your sleep, when your blood sugar levels are all over the place, when you're not training as a pressure release valve, when you're sitting at your desk and you're not moving and pumping your lymphatic system and your circulatory system, it's going to have a massive negative effect on how you feel and perform. And then obviously subsequently how you look. So the first area that I really want to drill down on with you guys around this idea of priming the pump. So priming the pump is a strategy that I've talked about in other episodes before, and I find it really useful to help continue to reinvigorate your system. So right now, I don't know if you can hear in the background, but I'm on my walking pad. Now, I will walk on my walking pad while I'm working, while I'm doing podcasts, but what I'll do between sessions of workflow, I'll go outside and I'll walk for 5 or 10 minutes out in the sun. So priming the pump for me is this trifecta. It's called sunlight, movement, and connection. Sunlight, movement, connection. So multiple times through the day, I will walk outside in the sunlight with the shirt off or a tank top on, and I will do some form of connection with someone. So I'll either shoot talking head videos for Instagram. I will go and do a live stream in my mastermind group. I will send some voice notes to one of my one-on-one students. I might drop in and do some voice notes into my Business Athlete Council channel teaching the guys and gals some key concepts. Or sometimes I'll take a walk with Lauren and the kids, and we'll walk around with the stroller, and we'll even take the dog at times. So I say this because the connection component, where you are dropping someone a quick audio message or a quick video message or a quick written message or a quick talk to text, or you're walking with someone that you have in your physical environment, that connection component really does charge up your energetic cup. The movement pumps your circulatory system and your lymphatic system. So it's going to transport oxygen through your body, and the sunlight acts like that mitochondrial recharge. So I find that, and I would tell you honestly, every hour for 5 minutes, walk up to your mailbox and back. Or if you have a longer driveway, walk up and down the driveway. Or if you have a larger backyard, walk around the backyard. If you have a private subdivision or you have a nice road to walk along, go duck out for a minute and walk up and down for 5. I promise you, when it comes to managing your energy and keeping your energetic state optimal, you have to consciously prime the pump multiple times per day. And that's where getting a standing desk and a walking pad is really useful. It's where getting a rebounder is very useful, or getting an air bike as well. So I'll have an air bike and my walking pad here in my Superhuman gym. Taking the kids in the stroller and walking with the strollers is a way. And then what I will do to multi-purpose that time is, like I said, I'll send messages to connect with people, or I'll get on a call if I have to, or I'll send a voice message. I'll often use AI like ChatGPT or Claude, and I will verbalize a message into AI, and it will clean it up for me, and it will turn it into an email, and I'll send that email. Or have someone asking about coaching, and I'll respond, and it will clean it up, and I'll send that response. I'm literally producing and working and creating while I'm out walking, priming the pump. So you've got to recognize that if you are a business guy or gal and you're just sitting at your desk in your office all day, like 8 a.m. through to 5, and you're not really moving much, you are leaving so much on the table. So much on the table. And I would say, at the very least, getting a standing desk and a walking pad is a very, very good place to begin. And make sure you use it. Don't just get one and then just have it sit there, and then you just come up with all the justifications around why you can't use it. I can't type properly, or you come up with these reasons, and it's just because we don't practice the thing. We don't get competent with it. So allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to kind of suck a little bit at first, and you will get better at the thing. One thing that I want to mention while it's at the top of my head is this idea about attention. What you focus on expands. And so from a manifestation standpoint, from an energetic standpoint, if you are just focusing on negative crap, you are going to see more negative crap. I promise you that. If you focus on the good stuff, on the positive things you've got, on the beautiful locations that you've been in, that creates more of that. And I'm adamant with this. So I have my favorites album on my phone, and it's set up with a bunch of videos and pictures of our land and moments in my family. It's like a digital vision board, basically. And every morning and every night, as I'm falling asleep and as I'm waking up, I will look over a lot of those digital vision board components, and I use it as a way to get myself into that place of appreciation and a place of gratitude, as corny as that sounds. And one thing I wanted to say that I find very useful is think about your ideal day. I often say this, but in fact, I'll say this first. Imagine if you never play the lottery, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? You go to the gas station, you see the winning ticket could be $350 million. You're like, man, that's quite a lot. And you think, you know what? I'm just going to get one. I'll see what happens. And you get a lottery ticket and you never really play it, so you're not really concerned. You don't think you're going to win really, so you're not even really thinking about it. You get home, and they're calling out the numbers, and you get out your ticket, and as you're looking at it, you're realizing that the numbers they're calling are the numbers on your ticket. And, the first 4 are there, and you're like, wow, like I've got the first 4 like lined up, and there's another 6 to go, but I got the first 4. Wow. Then you get 5, and you're thinking, man, look, this is kind of crazy. You think 6, 7, 8, and then you really start to think, man, I'm probably like misreading this. I'm misinterpreting this. And then you get to 9, and you're like thinking to yourself, okay, I've got one more, but the chance of me getting this last one is almost nil. So even if I got the first few, I probably still won't get anything. And they call it, and it's literally your numbers. And you're so bewildered that you check it 4 times. You can't even wrap your head around it. You're like, no way. There's no way that I just won. There's no way. And you have to like take it to your spouse and say, can you check this for me? I'm misreading this, aren't I? I feel like there's something, I'm not seeing something here. You're so gobsmacked. And they look at it, and they look up at you, and their mouth just drops. And they just say, you just won. You just won the first division. $350 million. Imagine knowing that you just won $350 million. Imagine that feeling. Like, take yourself to that feeling. Like that sheer euphoria of like, my life has changed forever. In that moment, my life has changed forever. And that euphoria and that energy that comes with that. Where did that energy come from? That energy didn't come from caffeine. That energy didn't come from you popping another Ritalin. That energy didn't come from you getting a better night's sleep. That energy didn't come from a superfood and you eating more goji berries. That energy didn't come from food. It didn't come from priming the pump. Where did it come from? You want to know something? You have that latent energy in you at all times. And most people are just so repressed and so removed from themselves, they've lost sight of that fact. And so first thing to realize is that you have a ton of latent potential energy inside you waiting to be actualized. And your ability to tap into that is the key. And the way that you can tap into it is obviously like priming the pump. A lot of the good self-care routines we talk about in these shows is fundamentally important. And I'm going to share more with you, but another part of it that is really important is thinking about your ideal day. So your ideal day. And what I would say is, imagine if I could wave my magic wand, and in 1 year from now, you have the exact life that you want. You have the body you want. You're wearing the clothes that you want. You're driving the car that you want. You're in the house that you want. You have the family that you want. You have the connection with your spouse that you want. You have the connection with your children that you want. You have the business that you want. You have the connection with the people and the team that you want. You live in the state that you want. All of it. Imagine the perfect day. Like, what time would you train? What time would you wake up? What time would you go to bed? Would you take a walk each day? Where would you be living? Would you be living in the mountains like I do and you take a walk out in nature? Would you be living by the beach and you walk along the beach at lunchtime? Imagine what you would be doing. Don't think with constraints. Don't be like, oh, it's got to be realistic. No. Think, daydream. Fantasize and daydream. Now, I say this because that vision, that daydream, that fantasy that you have, that's something that in many ways you can materialize a lot of those things. Now, you may not think that's true. That's part of the problem. Because that energy, that low energy focus, that doubt, low energy feels like doubt. It feels like procrastination. It feels like rumination. It feels like all the negative consequences around something, marinating in the things and the reasons why something won't work, rather than arguing for the reasons that will work. Remember, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you argue for your limitations, you're going to keep them. Do you want to keep them? If you don't, argue in favor of you overcoming it all. Because if you're going to have to argue one way or the other, why not just choose the better path? Why not? So I say, think about your ideal day. Who would you be with? What would you be doing? All that stuff. And the reason why I do this is because what I find is it acts like an energetic anchor. It kind of helps you get, when you start to fantasize and daydream about that life, it gets you into that place where you start to feel like you're tapping into that lottery-winning energetic charge. And the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. It's hard sometimes, don't get me wrong. It's not always easy. Sometimes if you're having a particularly challenging day or week, it can be quite hard to do this. But that's where practice comes in. And I find for me, often looking at pictures in my favorites album on my phone, having good conversations and positive conversations with people where I'm sort of talking through challenges that we're facing, and they just act like a soundboard. There is power to just having soundboards around you and the power of you being a soundboard. Sometimes you don't even have to solve someone's problem. You just be a soundboard for them, and you actually be a conduit for them to solve their own stuff. So I say this because as you start to fantasize that life, it's going to help you tap into that energy. But also, it's like a roadmap. It's like a compass. It's going to give you feedback on, okay, if that's the ideal life that you want, who do you need to be and who do you need to become to create that life? So that dream, that vision that you have, it's going to be contingent on you having a certain set of characteristics, habits, and behaviors. Like someone who's jacked and 5% body fat is going to have a certain set of characteristics and habits and behaviors when it comes to their diet, when it comes to their training, when it comes to their movement. Someone who makes $1 million a month is going to have a certain set of characteristics and habits when it comes to their personal brand and their social media marketing and the way that they choose to show up and post on social media. These things act like roadmaps. So now you can, and what I do is I look around and I say, who has the results that I want? Model what works. So look to people in your life that you know, or people online that you maybe don't know but you follow, and how do they operate? How do they show up? What are they doing on a day-to-day basis? What do they talk about on a day-to-day basis? Because I think that rather than you feeling like you have to go into this uncharted territory and reinvent the wheel, go to someone that's already got momentum in that area and model from them. When people join my Anomaly Project 6-week course or my Business Athlete Council, I will often say to them, look, you're going to have the plans, you're going to get the protocols, you're going to get the tactics, but I would just tell you right out of the gate, jump in the group and just model from people in the group that have momentum. Look at some of the people that are posting every single day. What are they posting? How are they posting it? What are they wearing? How are they operating? What do their habits and behaviors look like? And if you're unsure, ask them. Just see what they say. You know, maybe they don't respond if they don't know you. It is what it is. Or maybe if you ask, you might receive if you have the courage and the awareness to do so. So I think modeling what works. And so in my group, for example, there's people that have a lot of momentum. And people will jump in the group and they'll see how they operate and they will start to copy them. And eventually you find your own stride. But just getting out of the blocks and off the sidelines is a massive deal. And when you start to get these little wins under your belt, you'll notice that your nervous system starts to switch from one side to the other more often. So when you're in that sympathetic dominant state, it's going to look like a lot of survival. It's going to look like a lot of defense. It's going to look like a lot of avoidance. It's going to look like a lot of reactivity and scarcity. And so I see people checking those boxes all day long. Equally, when you get it more and more and more into that parasympathetic state, it's going to look like creativity. It's going to look like flow state. It's going to look like trust. It's going to look like leadership, more effective sales conversations. It's going to look like confidence. And people feel that. It's going to look like expansion. It's going to look like action. Because now you're actually putting rubber to the road. You're leaning into these things, these habits that are designed to create that 1 year dream from now life you want. One step at a time. One action item at a time. You know, when you think about someone who's dysregulated, their nervous system, they're very strained, they're stressed, they're off their game. Typically what I notice is that they take things personally even more. They avoid risk, so they get very contractive with their approach to things. They overreact to stuff because they're quite strained. They micromanage because they feel like they don't want to delegate or outsource anything, so they're all up in the trenches micromanaging everything and stressing themselves out even more. They struggle to delegate. They have poor emotional presence, and this is particularly true with your spouse and your children. You know, you'll make fear-based decisions. So you will make moves and react to situations out of fear rather than out of opportunity. And I especially see that in the business space. And then equally, when you're a regulated business athlete, you'll see clearly. You'll get into flow states more easily. You know, you'll respond instead of reacting. You'll make cleaner and clearer decisions. You handle and manage tension, pressure, and stress way more effectively. You'll lead your home better and you'll lead your team better. And so I say this because just think that all of that vibe, that's what creates the beautiful result you're looking for. It's what creates the changes, the result, the outcome that you are looking for in your life. You know, the way I think about this is you attract what you believe you're capable of. So your ability to cultivate capacity, your ability to cultivate belief. And I would say that in my life, one of the things that's been the most powerful driver with this has been my ability to get around people that are in the right rooms. Getting in the right rooms is such an important concept. You know, this comes back to this idea of what you focus on expands, but also very often, if you are just left to your own devices and you are left with people that you know from your past, know with your family, and you're not getting around ambitious, positive, influential, powerful, and driven, motivated, positive people, when you don't do that, you will default to your baseline. And I would actually say in my entrepreneurial journey, one of the biggest levers I pulled was just literally getting around the right people, getting in the right room, so to speak. And then once you start to see how they think, and once you start to see how they operate, you start to really shift your belief about what you can achieve. See, right now, your belief around what's possible for your weight loss, or around what's possible for your muscle building, around what's possible for your business, or what's possible for your life in general, very often that's just like a preloaded program that you've received from your family, from the people around you the most. And obviously, if you were fortunate enough, you might have had parents or people around you that were more business savvy, more health conscious. And so they were able to impart and teach you more useful strategies. But I know that most people aren't that way. I would say that we're in this beautiful era now where with social media, you can get experts at the tips of your fingers in everything. You know, there are talented people at the highest level on social media everywhere that you can now get some degree of access to. Whereas when I first started my health journey, this is right before the sort of dawn of social media. If you didn't know the person, or you didn't see them at the local gym, or you didn't have some direct contact with them, there's no way that you'd get like access and exposure to such talented, amazing people. So I say this now because when I started my entrepreneurial journey, one of the things I made an effort to do was to get in the quote-unquote right rooms. So I paid money to get into different mastermind groups with entrepreneurs that I vetted and I felt were good, and they served a function in terms of an area that I wanted to improve in my business. And I got into different mastermind groups, and I just bring my best energy. I show up as a lighthouse. I add value. I contribute. I serve. And what you'll find is that when you do that, you attract more and more good people into your world. And the more you do that, not only does it open doors for you in terms of potential clients and just opportunities to collaborate with amazing people that normally you might have never been able to collaborate with, but you get to learn from these people too. And not only do you get to learn the knowledge and the tactics, but you get to learn the energy. You get to learn how they move through space and time. What's their vibe like? So yeah, on one hand, look at the tactics. What are they doing from a tangible perspective? But also look at the way that they show up energetically. How do they make you feel when you talk to them? Like if they send you a voice message, how do they typically make you feel? Do they make you feel stressed out and doubtful? Or do they make you feel pumped up and optimistic about what's possible for you? So it's so important to just understand that your environment will shape a lot of your results. And I think that another area that is really important to think about is that this idea of embodiment. So you've got to learn how to be and become the type of person that has the result even before the result appears in your life. You have to learn how to be and become the type of person that has the result even before the result appears in your life. So what people do is they opposite to this. So they think to themselves, well, once I've lost the weight, or once I've got the money in the bank account, or once I've achieved the thing, I will then feel good. I will then give myself permission to relax. I will then celebrate. I will then feel like I'm confident and competent enough. And what they don't think, and then what happens is that becomes a negative self-fueling system. So if you think that you'll only start behaving differently once you see the result, how are you ever going to actually create the result in the first place? You know, if you think to yourself, man, I'll be really happy and energetic and pumped up once I'm in great shape. Well, you're not even going to get to be in great shape with that type of attitude, with that type of energy. You've got to say to yourself, how would a super fit athletic person be acting right now? So I'm going to ask you this. The version of you that has the body that you want, that has the money that you want, that has the business that you want, that has the relationships and the family that you want, what do they prioritize today? What do they do well on a daily basis? What are they doing as a set of habit stacks and non-negotiables today? What does it look like? Because I'm telling you, that idea of envisioning and imagining the life and the result that you want before it's even materialized, and then acting in accordance with that character, with that identity, that's absolutely everything. That's absolutely everything. I've really developed the skill of reconnecting to this concept over and over and over again. It's a practice, by the way. It's not something that you just say to yourself and you just speak a bunch of words and you just believe it. You've literally got to just take yourself there. And part of how you take yourself there is think of a time in your life, or think of a day where you had a really, really good day. Or think of a season. It can either be a season in your life, it could be a week, it could be a day, it could be a specific moment. Maybe you remember really clearly getting up on stage and doing an amazing public speaking event where you were super confident. Maybe you had a period in your life of a month or two where things were going really, really well. Like in all areas, whatever that looks like for you. So I remember a number of years ago, there was a period in my life where we were traveling in our RV and we just come up to the Smoky Mountains and things were just going really well. Like I felt really good. I was having really good conversations with people. We were getting lots of amazing new clients and that were actually very positive, enjoyable people to connect with. The environment was beautiful. It was like right around fall, so the leaves were bright orange and red. So it was just everything about that time period was amazing. And even during that time, we were making very good money and things were just kind of flowing. And I really did have that spring in my step and that belief and that energy. And so I take myself back to a time where that was true. And I just live into that state now. So especially if you've been through a more challenging season, or if you've been through like a bit of a bear market in your life, where you were just dealing with the pressure and stress of everything. And so when you're in that place, especially when you've been kicked, especially when you're feeling off your game, daydreaming and fantasizing about that period in your life or that day or that time window where you were kicking butt, that is super important. And I find that by getting out in the sun and walking and then looking at pictures that remind me of the environment that I had this beautiful experience in, all of those things all tie together to help anchor you back to the right energy. And at that point, you think to yourself, when I was in that state, when I was in that place, what type of energy did I have? Like if someone was to sit down and have a conversation with me, what type of energy did I have with them in terms of being calm, being charismatic, being high energy, being clear, feeling good, feeling dialed in? How were you operating? I bet you there's things you were doing and there's ways you were behaving then that you've inadvertently stopped doing. Get back to the doing, even if it's one or two things. So use it as an audit. I will use it every day as an audit of like what needs to get back to that origin, what needs to get back to that root. And I think to myself, was I getting and walking outside more? Was I having more sales conversations? Was I playing with the kids more? What was I doing with Lauren to be more connected with her? And that's often your compass. So I say all this because your ability to tap into positive memories, your ability to tap into the person you need to become based on the vision you have, all of these things will drive your capacity for stress so you don't fizzle and you don't burn out. But beyond that mental game, there are, like I've mentioned with the priming the pump, there's tangible things you do each day. So, talking about movement, sunlight, connection, like I mentioned, with that, even just morning sunlight, I find just even if I'm not feeling great, just getting outside in the morning to walk, that morning sunlight alone in the research, in the science, helps with circadian timing and melatonin production. It helps with cortisol rhythm. It helps improve dopamine response, which in turn helps stabilize and increase your mood. It helps with alertness because as you pump oxygen and blood through your system, you will feel more alert. And so, think of the benefit of having those things dialed in. You will perform better across the board. You'll have more energy with your family. You'll have more positive energy for sales conversations. And that's a big deal. That's the energetic substrate of your life right there. And I absolutely know that movement, I would say, is the foundation. Low grade, low intensity therapeutic movement, aka walking. Most people don't realize how effective this is. If you're in my mastermind group, you will know. If you're not familiar with that, this might be new to you. By the way, I would tell you, get into my Anomaly Project 6-week course if you're looking for a place to begin. It's been $497 for the last 2 years. I've now dropped it to $97 because I just want to help people. Like I'm talking about, people's energy has been off. And this is absolutely a great way to lock back in. So you can either start there or you can get in my Business Athlete Council, or if you want some one-on-one stuff, we can talk about that. Either way, get yourself some type of strategy, get yourself some type of help, because you're more than just some closed-loop algorithm system. You got to remember that. But I definitely think that finding as many creative ways to stack into your daily workflow, walking outside in the sun, walking pad, air bikes or Pelotons, rucking, strength training as a pressure release valve, little mobility flows, doing little bursts of kettlebell swings, post-meal walking. I will tell you, when you can stack in and sort of slot into your routine all of those things, it's going to help with blood flow and oxygen transportation, especially oxygenation to the brain. It's going to help with blood glucose control, which helps with all the stuff that people deal with as it relates to diabetes. It's going to help with digestion. Your digestion relies on movement to pump. That's why people, when they sit a lot, they often feel very constipated and backed up. This in turn helps with dopamine production, which in turn, all this stuff helps with energy, helps with creativity. When you feel more energized, when you have less brain fog, and your blood sugar levels are more stable, you're not going to experience all those ADHD-like issues as much. And when you do that, that unlocks levels of creativity and flow state that you didn't even probably think were possible at this point. So you got to remind yourself that you are a business athlete, and these levers, the walking, the sunlight, the connection, the hydration, they have to be daily practices. And even down to the breath work too. You know, my wife, she'll tell you, when I sit down to have dinner at night, I'll do 1 or 2 minutes of slow, controlled breathing before I even eat. Because again, that's another, when I was talking about the professionals and the business owners at the start that have digestive issues, part of that is because they're all so wound up. That stress on the nervous system, that sympathetic nervous system arousal will be having a negative effect on their biology, on your psychology, on your nervous system. And I'll sit there and I'll just slowly breathe. And I can feel my nervous system calming down. And then at that point, you're in more of a rest and digest state. And that's when you can eat and actually assimilate and absorb and metabolize nutrients more effectively. And so you get less bloating, you get less constipation, you get less backed up issues. And think about how good you feel when you feel like your digestion is really good. You'll be in a much better mood. You'll be way more engaged and interactive with your family. I mean, it's a total win-win. Now, I even think of training as an energetic slingshot. So don't just think of training as like a way to get jacked. Like for me, for example, I'm doing this podcast right now, and it's 11:11. It's literally 11:11 right now. And once I've done this podcast, I'm going to take a 5-minute walk out in the sun, and then I will train. Because what I find is when I've been inside and I haven't had sun exposure for a little while, and I've just been talking like this for an hour, I find I need to sort of recharge the system. Otherwise, I will feel a bit tired. I put a lot of energy and effort into articulating all these thoughts and just retaining everything and sharing this information with you. So first of all, if you like it, please share it. Please let people know about this. That means a lot to me. I don't charge for the show. I don't have any sponsors for the show. This is just me taking my time to do this to help people. So please help me get it out there. Please share it. Please let people know about this. But once I've done this, if I don't get some type of energetic slingshot, I will feel kind of tired. And so I think of training as that energetic slingshot, where what I'll do is I'll walk first. That kind of gets the body moving. It pumps the system in the sun. And then when I start training, what you'll find is that just through the act of training itself, pushing your body through those sets, the breathing, the sweating, the effort, the intensity, that does have an effect on your nervous system. And so what it does is it sort of charges you up. It's why I typically tell people to not train at nighttime if they can avoid it. Because if you train at nighttime, it typically affects your sleep. So we can use that to our advantage by training at, say, lunchtime. And so if you train at lunchtime, you get more of that energetic charge in the rest of your day in the afternoon. So think of training like an energetic slingshot. And if you can, obviously, position it somewhere in the day where you can get that second wind, that second burst of energy. Now, I realize not everyone can structure their day like that. But if you can, if you are a CEO, I would absolutely tell you to position your training either at, say, like 1 or 2 p.m. or first thing in the morning if you know you're not as consistent with your training as you want to be. So there you have it in terms of energetic slingshot. Another component that I think is really important to understand is that sleep concept and blood glucose stability. So if your hemoglobin A1C is high and your fasting insulin is high and you are running a high blood sugar level often, that is going to have an effect on your concentration. Very often people that think they have ADHD actually are insulin resistant and their blood sugar levels are up and down like a yo-yo. And so they're up and down like a yo-yo because they're snacking on random crap and they're eating lots of processed random things. If you're a snacker or you're just like throwing in processed random things a lot, that's absolutely going to have a negative effect on your insulin sensitivity. And so right away, by improving that metric, that set of numbers, you will definitely feel better in terms of how you think, the clarity of your thinking, and the mental bandwidth and the mental capacity that you have. But beyond that, you've got to think about when you're thinking about your diet and nutrition, like food is like software and your body and mind are the hardware. Yes, they're way more advanced than a computer though. But, I would say if I'm going to rattle off anything that's useful when it comes to diet, like protein anchor. So prioritize protein. Eat the rainbow. Whole foods. Make foods with one ingredient. Brown rice is just brown rice. Blueberries are just blueberries. Sweet potato is just sweet potato. Make 90+% of your diet whole foods with one ingredient. Micronutrients as well as macros. So people focus on protein, carbs, and fats, but we want to focus on micronutrients too, vitamins and minerals. So eat the rainbow is a good principle for this. Hydration. So focusing on at least half an ounce of spring water per pound of body weight, if not more, especially in summertime, especially if you're outdoors sweating a lot. And then using something like the Galpin equation to learn how much hydration you should be taking in while you train. That's for more advanced people, but it's still useful. Finding healthy food upgrades for the junk food that's been holding you back. Things like Macro Mike protein baking mixes. Things like the David protein bars or some type of protein bar you like the taste of. And again, some people will say things like, protein bars are not healthy for you, it's junk food. I get it. But what would you rather have someone have a protein bar or a Snickers or a Twix bar? I know what I would do. It's all about context. Because those things are going to have a massive effect on your energy. The thing I really think about, and even things like caffeine and stimulants, your gut health, The thing that I think about is that when you put junk into your body, you're going to feel like junk, and you're going to get junk energy out. When you put clean, crisp, vital fuel into your system, you're going to get good energy out. So you've really got to focus on addition and add in the good things every day and make it like a non-negotiable process. Beyond that, your sleep and your evening routine. I would say that having a good sleep-wake cycle is one of the foundation layers. I've done episodes on sleep. I've done episodes on digestion. I've done episodes on all these different areas as standalone items. So make sure that you go back and take a listen if you haven't. But what I would be saying in terms of sleep is that having a regular sleep-wake cycle is very important. So as much as you can, go to bed and wake up at the same time 7 days a week. It will help you more. If you're someone that's, goes to bed at 10 p.m. on Monday through Thursday and then stays up to 2 a.m. in the weekend, that's going to throw you off. And especially as you age, once you get to 50, 60 onwards, your physiology is going to get wrecked when you do that to yourself, and your energy will tank, and you'll come across as this moody, grumpy old person. And you'll wonder, like, how did I become this person? I never thought I would be this guy, and here I am. You've got to have that realization. And if you can have that realization, that gives you the power to do something about it. I would also say, when it comes to energy and just like feeling good, your ability to engineer your environment, like make your office look nice. Make your bedroom look nice. If you have a home gym, make it look nice, man. Put some effort into it. Like, you've seen my superhuman gym at our house. The walls are painted black. There's LEDs everywhere. I've got like fake bamboo plants in here. It's a nice, fun place to be in. I enjoy being in this environment. Whereas I see people that have a home gym and it's like a spare room in their house that doubles as like a laundry room with like a clothing horse and like bunches of like half-folded clothing items sprawled out all over the place. Hanging off the treadmill. The treadmill's like a drying rack. And the walls are just like plain white walls. That's not an inspiring, good energy environment to even operate in. And then you wonder why you're feeling uninspired. To feel more inspired, create an inspirational environment. So make some time to take a little bit of effort and pride into your office, into your living space, into your home gym if you have one. I know it sounds silly, but it really does have an effect. And all the things like, a clean workspace, throwing on some music in the background, the lighting, the scents, so like essential oils, your desk setup, standing desk, walking pad, your phone settings, reducing clutter so you're not living in piles of junk. And physical clutter is an outward manifestation of mental clutter. And so when you can simplify your physical environment, you'll typically simplify your mental environment too. And I would also say that this extends out to taking pride in your own appearance too. I find in terms of having better energy, when I go into the bathroom each morning and I take a little bit of time to freshen up, to wash myself up, get ready for the day, I'll jump in the shower for a few minutes. I'll do some gua sha on my body. I'll put some moisturizer on my face. I groom my beard. I style my hair. I get myself ready. If you just like step out of bed, throw a hat on, don't even brush your teeth, half shaven, very rare that you're actually going to feel really good energy. Now that you do have the odd outlier, but most of the time, most people, the energy will not be maximized. And so take a bit more pride in your physical appearance. That does have an effect on your psychology. And I always remember this when I first started to get into my mental health journey. I noticed how early on when I had a shower, when I put on some nice fresh clothes, when I groomed myself, I typically felt better energetically. There is a thing to that. So I would definitely tell you that should be a non-negotiable for you in business and just in life in general every single day. Carve out that time. I would also say that music and sound is really useful. So if I'm not doing voice messaging, if I'm not on a call, I'll often have music playing in the background in some capacity. Stuff that kind of gets me going. Equally, late in the afternoon, as we're winding down for the day, we'll put on some relaxing spa music on the TV in our house. Kind of wind everyone down, calm everyone down. I would say one of the last most important areas is going to be your tribe and collecting evidence. Your tribe and collecting evidence. Meaning, like you've got to, and this is why I have my mastermind groups. Because the amount of people that I see struggle and they're just lone wolfing it, doing it by themselves and left to their own devices is disastrous. And I'll be honest, at that point, you don't have anyone to blame but yourself. If you're choosing to play defense and you're procrastinating and you're doing all the energetic contraction things that are involved with someone who stays stuck, you have no one to blame but yourself. But if you can see that you're doing those behaviors and be like, you know what, I've got to do the exact opposite to this. I've got to get that coaching. I've got to make that move. I've got to get into that group. I've got to have those conversations. When you can do that, you reverse that vortex. You reverse that pattern. And then given time, you will notice that it starts to create a better result. And so absolutely getting in environments where there's ambitious, positive people who want to learn and grow is super important. In my mastermind group, I do morning mindset messages every day. And I would say that there's a number of people in the group that stay for that. They said that that's helped them the most out of anything that I've done. Where every day at about 5 a.m., I jump in and I just share some mental tactics and thoughts for the day. And the amount of people that it's helped, I'm proud of that. And it helps me too. It really does. It's such a gift. It's such a beautiful part of this process. And I would encourage you to try it and experience it for yourself. But when it comes to collecting evidence, at the end of the day, you can read the books, you can listen to the podcasts, but if you just listen to this and then you just shelve it and do absolutely nothing and you go back into zombie land, plug yourself back into the matrix, eat some pizza and just go straight back to the bullshit you were doing, you're going to keep on the same loop. Your ability to collect evidence that you are who you say you are. Who do you want to be? Start collecting irrefutable evidence that you're that person. So if you are someone that is going to be in great shape, start collecting evidence that that's the case. Meaning, you're not just smashing back junk food all the time. You're finding healthy food upgrades. You're finding ways to manage your stress, manage your emotions where you're not doing that anymore. You are hitting your step count every day. You're using training as a pressure release valve. You're doing all these things that help you with that positive outcome. It's super important to think that the only way that you're going to truly believe that you're capable of any of this is by stacking proof. The reason why I'm so confident with what I do now, with my ability to sell or my ability to help people, is because I've stacked so much proof that it's possible. And so early on, just stacking any win is important. Get your step count in. Get your clean meals in. Eat the rainbow. Throw some salad greens with that meal. Have more positive conversations each day. Get into the gym and get a workout done, even if it's not perfect. Like your ability to stack those consistent bits of evidence, that's what's going to create the beautiful life that you want. And I'm telling you this because you have got to stop thinking that your transformation lies on the other side of more unknown tactics and more gimmicks. Maybe I need to take a certain peptide, or maybe there's a special supplement that helps with my brain. Though all of those things can have a use case. But when you finally get back to this place of, I'm going to truly envision what I want my life to be, and then I'm going to think about the type of man or woman that has that result. What are their habits? How do they move through the world? How do they connect with the people around them? And just immerse yourself in that fact. Immerse yourself in that notion. embody it in every way, shape, and form. So I would tell you today that the way you choose to show up, and think about things from the end in mind. So if you're going to go have a conversation with someone today, think about that conversation I mentioned at the very beginning. When I spoke to that guy and he was so positive and he listened and he was very attentive and he connected with me in such a way that I remember that conversation 10 years on, think with the end in mind. Be that person for someone else today. Go and connect with and pour into positively a bunch of people right now by being that person. You're thinking about, I want to leave a great impression on these people today. I want to make their day. I want to get outside myself. I want to get outside my own problems and not make this about me. And I want to make this day memorable for those people. So they look back and they're like, man, that was a really good day because of you. And that's a future pacing skill. Like anyone can do that when you're mindful. So future pace how you want to feel and act in accordance with that feeling. Life's going to kick you so hard sometimes. And sometimes it's going to come in waves where you feel like it's over and it comes back for more. And you're going to go through seasons where you're really getting tested. And your ability to breathe through it all and remind yourself, I've made it through every single curveball and challenge that I've faced in my life so far. I've always figured it out. You've always figured it out. And whether or not the outcome happens in the way you would like, you remind yourself, I will be good either way. I will be good either way. And when you lock into that and you show up as that person, that, my friend, is where the magic happens. And that is how you create that beautiful, beautiful life that every business athlete is aspiring towards.